13. Welcome. Good to see a full house. Roll call, please.
Roger Sprague.
Here.
Henry Quant.
Here.
Dick Anderson.
Here.
Gordon Eggleton.
Here.
Gary Ellingson. He's excused. Chester Norikis.
Here.
And Wes Ryan.
Here. Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
could I correct your introduction?
Yes.
It's actually February 25th, not the 13th.
What did I say?
13th?
What did I say?
Oh, I thought I heard February 13th, but I may be mistaken.
Well, I thought I said February 25th.
Sounds
I'm
good
sorry.
to me.
It was February 25th, 2013. Time flies. Comments from citizens present. If anyone has signed up, we will call them in the order they were signed. Bob Doobie. You would give your name and address and speak closely into the mic.
My name is Robert Doobie. I live at 6605 Southwest Fleet in Lincoln City, Oregon. I have a business located at 6334 South Highway 101, Lincoln City, in the Cutler Business District. This is the first time I've taken the opportunity to speak in this chamber, so please bear with me. I'd like to speak to you about urban renewal in the business districts of Lincoln City. Over the past few years, I've seen the urban renewal visions become a reality in numerous business districts north of the Schooner Creek Bridge to the tune of millions of dollars, while at the same time I've seen vision after vision in the Cutler Business District turned into disappointment after disappointment as we continually be told no on projects. The two main visions for the Cutler Business District, in my opinion, were the highway expansion and the sewer expansion. The highway project, I have seen the plan in your Cutler District Community Vision and Corridor Plan, is a project that is not only beautiful but extremely practical and would have lured businesses to the Cutler Business District, as well as to have solidified the Cutler Business District as being in Lincoln City at 64th Street. As an owner of the Streetcar Village, you have no idea how many times the merchants there get asked, how far is it till we get into Lincoln City? You have no idea how disheartening it is to look at them and say, you're in it. Sadly, this highway expansion program, from what I am told, is not going to happen. The sewer expansion program, which would extend the existing sewer on Jetty to the east side of the highway at 63rd Street, from what I understand, now we're being told we're probably not going to get that either. The sewer expansion program is absolutely critical to the future and future expansion of the Cutler Business District. I've been there for 32 years. To my knowledge, there is not one single commercial business structure that has been built in that area on a piece of property that does not have sewer access. Now, I'm one of the lucky ones. I unfortunately am not in the urban growth boundary. I'm just outside of it, but I understand how it affects the business community around me. I'm lucky in that I at least have a septic tank. ProBuild, one of your largest businesses in the Lincoln City area, they don't even have a septic tank. They have a holding tank that they pay approximately $7,000 a year to have pumped when it gets full. Now, without this sewer expansion, the Cutler Business District is condemned to stagnation. You will never see any significant business growth in that area. Sewer is the absolute core of any business community. Now, I understand we're going to be spending money, in my opinion, that will go not only into the tens, but probably into the thousands of dollars to put utilities underground in front of the D River Wayside for the express purpose, possibly others, of getting rid of the wires overhead to make it look prettier. Now, I'm a little shorter than the average guy, but I don't know of anybody whose vision of the ocean gets blocked by wires 40 feet in the air. And I fail to understand how we can spend money on beautification when the life of a critical business district in Lincoln City is on the line here. In closing, I'd simply like to say The Cutler business community is not an area on the outskirts of Lincoln City that it visually appears to be now. We are a part of Lincoln City. My question is, why are we not treated like we're a part of Lincoln City? Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Jerry Warner. You're on the list for, well, City Council or Urban Renewal, whichever. You could do both if you really wanted to. Okay.
My name is Jerry Warner. I live at 1233 Lakewood, and Chairman and council members, I was just very interested to hear the comments by the gentleman that just spoke in regards to the sewer extension. In regards to, when I look at your agenda, I see that you're getting ready to look at approving that undergrounding across the D Lake area there. I've been here before and talked on it at least twice before. Of course, obviously, it didn't make any impression on anybody, but I did speak up and say my piece on it in the regards that it doesn't really fit with the goals of the mission statement of Lincoln City's Urban Renewal Project. The mission of the Lincoln City Urban Renewal Agency is to eliminate blight, which hasn't happened, and the depreciating property values in the area that the agency's jurisdiction is in process. That hasn't happened either. Attract job-producing private investments will improve property values and improve the area's visual quality. I guess this is what you're hanging your hat on that. But in regards, I've been here at a lot of these meetings, and I said that these things really, really need to be reviewed before you start investing the taxpayers' money in it. And the Ocean Lake project is probably one of the greatest ones. There you spent some in excess of $20 to $25 million down there, and there hasn't been one blighted property removed or added to. And I think probably one of the biggest things that bothers me the most on this whole thing is the fact that at one time there was something like 82 people involved in urban renewal, Roger, you being one of them, and as advisory group, and they looked at the plan, approved the plan, but the plan hasn't been followed. And therefore, I think that when you leave it up to an urban renewal agency and the changing council members, I think you're really hurting it by not allowing the general public to be part of these decisions. Because anybody that's looking at it on the basis of development and economic development, which there is zero. Lincoln City has always had the reputation of being the most anti-business community in the state. And you can run into one person after another. I've looked at the budget. You have $300,000 in there one year for economic development, $400,000 next year in there. Nothing ever happens. And until somebody's really ready to invest some money, nothing's going to happen in this community. And you have to get ready. You have to spend time in development of a package so that when somebody comes in here and say, I want to locate a business, that they have that information and they have somebody to take them by the hand and lead them through so that they will invest. All I can say is, as far as the the D Lake undergrounding there, it's going to cost well over $1 million. And like the gentleman said, when you're driving by in a car, you can't see the power lines, you can't see anything else. It's just an investment of beautification. And that's been part of the problem with this whole urban renewal thing, is the fact that you haven't weighted against to what is it going to return to the taxpayers. And it's been very, very little. In fact, this is probably the only urban renewal project that is taking more property off the tax rolls than they're putting on, as far as money that's going to be returned to the taxpayer. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We have the minutes of the meeting of February 11th before us. Any corrections or additions?
Mr. Chairman, I'd move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's carried. Next item is the special order of business, the D-Lake Undergrounding Design Award.
Good evening. In 2012, the agency directed staff to proceed with undergrounding utilities in the D-Lake District on the west side of Highway 101 from Northwest 2nd Street to Southwest Ebb Avenue. Staff issued a request for qualifications and received 4 submittals. As you can see, here's a picture of the D-Lake area we're all very familiar with. There's a slide showing Northwest 2nd Drive across the D River and at the south end, Southwest Ebb. Staff entered into negotiation for project scope and cost proposal, and that's attached as Exhibit A in the resolution that you have before you on the agenda this evening. We're asking for approval of $108,740 at this time for design and engineering services through completion of bid documents, which in the Exhibit A of the staff report is under the scope tasks 1.1 through 9.4. Any bidding assistance and construction services will be negotiated prior to construction. However, getting this information as part of the proposal gives us a preliminary estimate of those costs. Excuse me. As you may recall, the South 1st Street traffic signal will be replaced prior to the utility undergrounding under a separate contract. And we're here to see if you have any questions or comments. And that's our recommendation is to authorize the city manager enter into a contract with ACE Consulting, Inc. for engineering and design services related to the D-Lake utility undergrounding project.
Any comments or questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman. Elson, I guess the question I had was there more than one bidder than ACE? And did I miss that? I guess you implied that it was, but I didn't see it in the attachments.
Yeah, in the resolution, there's an Exhibit A that shows what submittals we received, which was for a request for qualifications. So we did a qualification-based selection, and then after we selected the most qualified of those proposals, then we entered into a negotiation about cost.
Mayor, if I may chime in, and Richard may need to also, that's different. These kinds of services are done differently than a construction contract where you have specifications and you go to the lowest qualified bidder. This is a different kind of selection process mandated by the state legislature. And I'll turn it over to Richard in a minute to give you a little more background on that. But in addition to that, Richard brought to my attention that the law changed effective January of this year, or excuse me, January 2012, last year. And he would like an opportunity, if you decide to award this, and I hope that you do, because this is an excellent contractor in this type of work, make it conditional upon the city attorney's review of the process, because there has been a law change that may not be reflected in our current ordinances. So again, if you make a motion, just include that as part of the motion. Richard, do you want to talk about that process that's used, the qualification-based process?
Well, this is, first of all, this, well, that's the This is a contract for architectural engineer services, design services. This isn't the actual construction contract. So that falls under a different process. And there is a cutoff of $100,000 for going through the revised process that in effective in 2012, there was a allowance for anything under $100,000 to be by direct award, whereas over $100,000 needs to follow this process in the statute. I haven't had the opportunity to sit down with staff because basically what we have before us is the award document. I don't know what process they followed. They may have met the requirements of the law. That's the only request I'd make, is that you allow me to review to make sure that we complied with the law that was effective on January 1st of last year. Again, it's architectural engineer, that kind of design service, not the actual construction, which is a different.
Well, and Mr. Rucker, you're correct. I was thinking of the public works type of where we see the bids. So that was the question. Thanks for the explanation. A good reminder.
I don't know. I didn't look at the qualification evaluation. One of the things that you should know about this particular engineering firm, of course, you've had experience with them on the wastewater plant where they did the design work on that, and some of our major lift stations. But also when we did the Ocean Lake undergrounding, we awarded to a contractor, an engineer, who got about halfway into the design process of the undergrounding, which turned out to be extremely complicated in Ocean Lake because it involved not only the power lines, but the phone lines, the cable, and the connections to multiple businesses that were pretty complicated. The contractor, the engineer that we had, who seemed to be well qualified, it just finally threw up his hands and couldn't complete the work. We were on a pretty tight timeline because of ODOT and seasons and so on. We contracted with ACE to come in. They picked up the pieces to that in short order, did an excellent design project. It got completed with very few problems. So they certainly have good undergrounding design background. I think they may have, no, they didn't do the Taft. But they did the Ocean Lake and did a very fine job. And this project, by the way, is simpler than the Ocean Lake was because there's not as many connections, there's not as many different utilities involved in it.
Mr. Chairman, just one other question,
yes,
if I can. Allison, as I was looking through, then I was trying to satisfy myself what we were asking for. And I think I saw in the bid or in their description that they have the ability to monitor the actual construction and see, I guess I'm looking for this engineer and whoever designs it to follow the project all the way through, be our eyes and ears, checking on, and I guess kind of a warranty, if I can, and I apologize for the terms, but I'm looking to see that things get done per the design.
Yeah, they're typically available to answer questions, but if we wanted them to do like construction management and bidding services, that would be under a separate process.
And would that be a next step that we would get from them, this design and some estimates, but
yes.
I guess, Mr. Chairman, I would like us to at least know what that costs so we could consider it when it comes before us.
To have that cost ahead of time before we decide on this?
No, when they do their,
okay,
assuming we approve this, that at some point I'd like to know what it's going to cost us to have somebody follow this thing all the way through.
I think that's a good idea. Okay. Any other comments or questions? Okay, and for those who are watching us on TV or on their computer, the gentleman that's sitting next to our city manager is our new city attorney, Richard Abicello. So I just wanted to introduce him to you all. Okay, continue, please.
Are there any additional questions on this topic?
I think that there were no questions, so let's go on.
Let me have one, please,
All right.
Mr. Chair. At the end of the resolution on that evaluation qualification sheet, Allison,
Yes.
there's a segment labeled Other, and under Other, you've got SUE.
Yeah, that's their experience with utility work. And I can't remember what SUE stands for. There might be a Public Works. Subsurface utility
Okay,
evaluation.
all right.
SUE is a common term for people used to working with utilities, so.
And in Exhibit A, under Project Understanding, you mentioned that there's going to be daily inspection by URA.
Yes,
And
and
Renewal Agency will be inspecting the project daily? Is that my understanding?
well, and I think that that's probably, I'm sorry, which page are you?
Exhibit A,
Uh-huh.
page 1, Project Understanding.
Sorry, I don't see it. Under the scope of work, review meetings or
Under Project Understanding.
project understanding? Yeah, it's not usually a daily, when we're in contract for design and engineering, there's not usually a daily interaction. There's, the ping pong ball of getting submittals at various stages during the design and engineering.
Yes,
And
yes.
commenting on that.
I'm confusing that with construction, I think.
So that might need to be clarified in the language.
Thank you,
I'll double check that.
thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Okay, let's proceed.
Okay, moving on to a loan program update for the Business Expansion Loan Program. And before we jump into that item, I just wanted to let you know at the last agency meeting, there was a question about how much has been allocated for economic development for the 2012-13 fiscal year. And that amount is $300,000, which is in the Urban Renewal General Fund, and then we also have $400,000 in the revolving loan fund. So I just wanted to report back to you on that. So last year, you selected to move forward a business expansion loan program as one of the agency's economic development tools. The goal of this program is to make loan funds for business expansion available to commercial properties and businesses within the Urban Renewal District. The interest rates would range, depending on what the loan request is, the interest rates would range from 0 to 2% fixed, and the payback would not exceed 10 years, which is the payback for our facade improvement loan program. The amounts, people cannot request any greater than $75,000, same as the facade improvement program. And the applicants must show evidence that the business expansion loan will create a high probability of adding or retaining staff. At the last agency meeting, staff brought you a draft with discussion items to help clarify the intended direction of the program. Staff has incorporated those comments into the final draft that you have before you tonight. If the agency approves our final draft, staff will take this to Cascade West Financial Services, and we would work out a partnership for administering those loans. And then we would come back to you with an update on those meetings and ask for your final approval of the program. Are there any questions about this?
Questions of the panel or comments?
Yeah, I do,
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Chairman.
Mr. Anderson?
Allison, is there open to exploration of some, a more local agency than Cascade West Financial to see if anyone else is interested in administering these loans? And I'm thinking specifically Oregon Coast Bank or TLC Credit Union.
Yeah, that's a great question. As you know, with our facade improvement program, we do use a local bank, and then we use an outside, they're in Oregon, but they're not in Lincoln City, person that does all the credit checks and approvals, and then looks at the debt-to-income ratio to let us know, to report to the loan committee that they have a high probability of paying it back. They've got enough equity and all that. So that's how that one is set up. And from what I understand with talking with the local banks, there isn't really a person or entity in Lincoln City that can offer that service that we're using to have that kind of credit review. So that's kind of as local as we can get at the moment for that. This one, kind of the same thing, except that we're dealing with kind of a different animal, business expansion. Some people might be more collateralized than others. So it's a little bit different. And because Cascade West Financial already offers a similar program, we kind of feel like it'd be a little more sound to work with them.
And where are they located?
I think they're in Salem.
So I guess the question still goes, have we really approached Oregon Coast or, the credit union, local credit union? Because I'm just thinking, as I hear their advertisements, I hear business loans and real estate loans, which to me, the consumer would say it fits the bill. And it may not. And so I guess I want to assure ourselves that we've reached out and given the local entity, a chance to say, no, it doesn't fit, or whatever.
Absolutely. And as I mentioned, we did meet with all the area banks, and we let them know that this was one of the economic tools that we would be taking forward. And many of the banks do have business expansion loans. Some of them are more aggressively advertising them than others just because the market is different. But mostly what their concern is risk. And so because they are sometimes restricted with federal money about risk management, that they spoke about partnering, but not always being able to offer the exact program that we have in front of us. So because Cascade West has dealt with this a little bit more.
And this is who we use with the facade loans, right?
No.
Oh, this is different.
This is a
So
different
you're
one.
saying they specialize more in business expansion
Yes.
loans. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And they're connected, I think, with the COG
Okay.
somehow, Council of Governments.
Oh.
I can't really remember what the relationship is exactly, but.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I want to make sure, and my question is just to make sure I don't hear from the local banks that we didn't give them an opportunity. And so you're assuring me they're well versed and have had the opportunity.
Yeah, they are
Okay.
aware that this program's coming forward, and they appreciated that we met with them, and we did ask, would you feel that your toes would be stepped on in any way if we would be, duplicating something that you have to offer? And they said, absolutely not. We want to support our business community, and whatever tools are available, please circle back with us and let us know what you have eventually, and so that if they have an applicant who they can't serve, then they can refer them to our program.
So then, Mr. Chairman, I do have questions, and I realize, Allison, this is a draft, and I appreciate that. And I don't know what might be best, but to me, I found this cumbersome to read through,
Okay.
and have some suggestions of
Sure.
pulling it together, and I don't know that we really need to take time, unless everybody was ready to, approve and go on. But it's more the layout seemed confusing, and for me, I didn't see any kind of discussion around the objective, which was to add FTE. And so my footnote was, I'm assuming somewhere, it's not in the loan program description. It was in your memo, kind of.
Yeah, and it's under the Tier 3 loans on page 2 of the program. It's
So-
one sentence, so maybe that could be highlighted better.
Well, what I'm wondering, is it not effective in Tier 1 and Tier 2? I mean, is it, are we...
I see what you mean, yeah.
So, and I guess what I was looking at is you have a nice program description, and I guess I would envision you put all your criteria up there that you want to happen to the program, except for, like in Tier 1, you're saying loan fee waived. So you'd leave that in Tier 1, because up above you've said loan fee $100. Mm-hmm. And that would be appropriate, but all other things above apply. So you then come to a shorter list under, and that's where I started getting confused as to, is this a loan fee different from the loan fee up above? And, when I was looking at that, and again, how am I going to hold them accountable for, adding FTE? It was a question. And I get, not only hold their feet to the fire, but for how long?
Right.
Here today, fired tomorrow, after the loan closes.
Yeah, and those are questions we can get answered when we talk with Cascades West to see kind of how their program, how they account for that, and the application can incorporate, that better as well.
Now, over on page 3, under, I guess still kind of deep into the process, very last, it talked about processing and closing fees are paid by borrower and not included in the loan amount, which tells me I had to go a long ways to realize there's more to this loan than met the eye. Somebody else must have some costs,
Yes.
and we ought to move that back up to the program.
Okay.
That in addition to a loan fee, there may be whatever we want to call our partner fees associated, kind of give them an estimate. But I'd be glad to sit down with you with my notes and try to clean up the display. 'Cause that's all it is. I think the stuff is here.
Yeah, that would be great. If you have ways to make it more clear, that would be great. Before we meet with Cascades West, that would be...
Okay. But I'd be glad to do that, Mr. Chairman.
Good idea. Any other comments or questions?
I just had some input. I do have some experience with job creation incentive programs, and as part of that, you usually have the parties enter into a written agreement about the job creation and answer some of the questions you had about how long, how does it apply. So I could provide some input. I realize this is just at the draft approval stage, but I'd be interested in doing that.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay. I think we worked that one pretty well.
Okay, great.
Let us go on.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
will the agency, or will staff be coming back with a revised final draft?
That's my take on it.
Thank you.
We will. It just depends. Do you want us to do that before we meet with Cascades West or after?
It sounded as though that would be helpful for you to make it clearer before approaching them.
Okay. I wasn't sure if it sounded
Mr. Mayor, was that in your intention?
Was that?
Yeah, I'm comfortable with that, because there's no reason why we get it to you. Does it have to be a formal, I wonder if a draft document could be sent around before our next agency meeting, or something to speed up?
I'd commit to, put it up on, my list of priorities and to assist. I do think, though, that you want to take action at this meeting.
Kurt,
If I may interject, there's been some talk here about the FTE requirement, full-time position. It was my impression from our discussion when we talked about it last time, that wasn't a requirement, going to be a requirement of this loan program. We were going to encourage it in every way we can, and we were going to try to get some assurance that there was a likelihood that it would retain staff or or add staff. But if you're saying that you'd like to see it as a requirement, then I think we want to know that now, so that would be a major revision, I think, to the. We'd started out that way, but then when we had the discussion the other time, it didn't sound like that was a critical component. So we included it only as we'd like to see it happen, or we'd like a high probability of it happening, but it wasn't going to be a requirement.
So the question is, do we want to make that a requirement, or is that something we're just trying to shoot for?
Well, and I mentioned it at the last meeting. I certainly thought I'd made it clear that I think it needs to be a requirement. If not hiring, at least retaining. I don't want to give a business loan to somebody so that they can eliminate personnel. That's not the concept. That we're trying to get people to work, and we're trying to improve the district. But to give them money so they can automate and get rid of people, no, that was certainly not would not be my intention. Also, just as long as it's at my end of here. I was on the agency when we developed the other loan program way back when, and we went through a similar system of citing what we wanted and sent it over to the same people that are handling that program.
Cascades West?
Right. And it got revised because some of what we wanted wouldn't work with their criteria. And certainly I feel comfortable with a couple of minor changes like the mayor is doing or suggested. We approve a corrected version to be going on to them, because we're going to get it back from them anyway, because they're going to make some revisions. But that's just my opinion.
Other comments?
Mr. Chairman, I'm in agreement with Wes that, to me, I think there has to be an FTE, either retainage or addition. And I guess looking at my notes, I even questioned maybe a new business to the area rather than, simply with a loan program for commercial properties in urban renewal district. I guess if somehow this loan program assisted in relocating a business into the urban renewal, might help. Because the idea is to get them into the urban renewal. So I guess these are some of the things that, maybe when we get this pod through a little more, we'll kick around before sending it off.
Okay, I think we're being asked now to decide whether we want to make that a requirement or not, and I think, how does the rest of the council feel about it?
Yes.
Okay, I see a consensus.
I feel all right about retaining, but in terms of adding, if I put myself in the position of a business owner, it'd be pretty hard for me to guarantee that I'm going to be able to add an employee if I enhance my business in one way or another.
And I don't disagree with you, just I guess, and that raises the question of the loan to begin with. I mean, it's a nice exercise, but I think there's what we've got to figure out. If we don't want X, why do this? Because we've got facade loans, for example, going on. So if it's fix up your place, I think we expanded that. Mm-hmm. And this was an attempt to encourage new business or addition or something. So I don't disagree with you. I'm hoping city attorney can help us with some framework on tying the commitment to an addition or retainage kind of, and let's see what it says.
All right.
We may decide it isn't worth it.
All right.
Other comments? I would make a comment that the title of this loan essentially is a business expansion loan. If you're going to expand your business, that means most likely a new position. So I favor the FTE requirement as well. So I think we have a consensus from the majority that that is to be part of the program.
Okay, great.
Mr. Chair, I'm thinking, now that we kind of, Kurt Olson indicated he thought we were going in one direction. Definitely are not going in that direction. We were going in a different direction. And the mayor had some other issues, and the attorney thought he might be able to contribute into it too. Maybe this should come back to us at our next meeting before we end it on, after all.
I expected that was what we were going to be doing.
Okay, great.
Okay, the next item.
Okay, thank you. The next item is the local program support. This is another economic development tool that you wanted to move on from the economic development toolbox. The goal of the local program support grant is to provide an annual financial assistance program for local organizations involved in economic development activities that support the mission of the Urban Renewal Agency and provide services within the Urban Renewal District. The draft program document proposes grants up to $10,000, and that would be subject to availability of the funding to an initial $50,000 annually. Multiple grants to one organization for different economic development programs are available so long as the total amount for each organization does not exceed $25,000 in 1 year. Eligible activities could be a technical assistance program, tuition for small business management program, or scholarships for training courses. And you do have the draft in your packet. Are there any questions or comments on this program?
Questions? Mr. Anderson.
Sorry. Elson, could you help me with the goal of this program, the measurable goal at the end of 2 years? What would I expect, other than the money out the door? What would I see?
Well, that's going to depend on what submittals we get for the programs. It's hard to predict because we don't have a good grasp of what the applications will be.
Right.
But, they would have to service or, address business support, however they define economic development for, the Urban Renewal District. So it's very broad just because we don't know what programs are out there or what programs can be developed by these local organizations. So that's hard to...
So would it be fair, though, to think in terms of some likely ones would be existing employees in urban renewal businesses or businesses that are in the urban renewal attending a class on customer service or better sales technique? Is that...
Sure, or internet sales training or, yeah.
See, that's, and I'm only asking because I can't remember when this was kind of fleshed out, what need we're trying to plug, and...
Yeah, it's hard because we're, it's not our program, so we're essentially funding another program. So what that program looks like really could be carte blanche in terms of, what the market is out there and what these organizations see as the need in terms of fostering economic development. So it's pretty broad for that reason.
Yeah. But again, I think it is in that respect, except we put on it, and rightfully, that we need it to tie back to the Urban Renewal District.
Yes.
So I'm not envisioning a community college class funded through this that 5 people from Lincoln City happen to attend, in Newport.
Right. Yeah, no, it's primarily to serve businesses of the Urban Renewal District. So they would have to propose some way of verifying that in their application. And, there's there's also, I think there's, in the application itself,
Yeah, it talks about the program.
somewhere, so there's a description of the proposed work, how it will be done, who it will serve. That's where we're looking at what their objectives are for their program. And then it's really up to the loan committee to set the bar on how often they would report back. So they would have accountability just with providing some kind of report, maybe at 6-month or 1-year intervals, maybe after the program's complete. That could be stipulated through the process, the application process.
So, Mr. Chairman, again, it's conceivable that we may say yes to this and sit and listen to applicants and are not sold on whatever program they brought to the loan committee or to the funding committee for a variety of reasons that it doesn't seem to hit.
The question is, who's the funding committee?
Yeah, this would operate similar to the facade improvement loan program. So we would have our existing loan subcommittee that would review any applications, see that they meet what our objectives are, the mission of urban renewal, and how comfortable they feel with the organization, what they've done in the past, and then how they're proposing to really run their program and provide accountability for the funds.
Okay.
So it would happen, just like we would review an application for a building improvement for a facade. Is it in alignment with the goals of the program, and do we have the credit worthiness and payback probability before recommending to the agency that it be issued? So.
Are you comfortable with that?
Yeah, I think that's, I guess I just want to make sure as we get into this further, assuming we do, that we're feeling our way along, and that some organizations may be making a pitch to the agency that don't meet unestablished criteria yet. And that's what's going to be kind of hard and disappointing, is if whomever is listening to the pitch, just isn't sold on it meeting and we haven't really established the criteria. That's what I'm uncomfortable with. They're trying to say, what's our goal? If it's just to hold classes, I don't know that I'm excited about that, but I could be, I guess.
Well, I think we certainly want to know whether or not we're making progress because of the program. And
Yeah.
I'm assuming, and in fact, I shouldn't assume anything, but I'm assuming that this is only available to businesses within the urban renewal district. Am I right?
That's right. Now, if someone were to have a class for 10 people who have businesses or are employees of businesses in the urban renewal district, and they had a class and other people were invited, that's not something that we have stipulated. So that's really going to depend on, I hope we have many submittals for the funds, and so it's competitive, and there's a process with, determining which ones kind of rise to the top, but there's no way to know until we kind of, like you said, step out there.
Mr. Chairman, just the words you used, if I could go for clarity, because last time I kind of asked that. My understanding is this is grant money to not businesses, but to organizations that assist businesses. Hypothetically, use the community college. Mr. Price has the small business development, and I apologize for the proper word, but hypothetically, they may come to the agency, ask for $25,000 or some amount to put on a series of classes that would be aimed at business owners or whatever, and that could meet the criteria. We'd certainly be asking and wanting to see Lincoln City Urban Renewal employees in the class, and maybe they get in for free, which kind of covers the costs or whatever we're putting up, and the other, as Allison indicated, the other 20 from around the county, pay a premium or pay at some kind of tuition. But if you're thinking this is going to a antique store,
No.
okay, to do something for the employees. So
I'm just concerned about how you can target it
Right.
to and
I agree. That's the hard part.
yes.
Yeah, and that'll come with the submittal of those specific programs.
Okay.
So we'll be looking for objectives and, whatever other information that we need. If we have more questions about it, we can ask them to clarify. So new process, and
It sounds to me like we're at the same position with this loan as we were with the loan process as we were with the previous one. You need to come back with a revision, perhaps?
well, I believe this is the final draft that incorporated your comments from the last meeting. So if there are other changes that we need to make, we can do that. But
Well, it sounded to me like we were at a position where we were maybe changing things a little bit.
Oh, I don't think so. I was asking, I think it has to be an understanding that there isn't a lot of criteria to give to the entity that might apply for some funding, other than what you read here that says, we want you to tell us, we have money available, you tell us how you would apply it and target this audience.
Okay.
And I think this says that. I'm comfortable that the document says
okay.
that.
I thought you were wanting some additional changes.
No, it's,
Okay?
Mr. Chair.
Yes. Mr. Norikis.
Allison, available to organizations that provide economic development services. Who does that other than SBDC?
it could be the Chamber, or it could be, we also have the Economic Development Alliance of Lincoln County. And there may be other nonprofits out there who, are doing things that are similar. They're not maybe calling it economic development, but they do job training or, I just don't know.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other comments or questions? What's the council's position?
well, then would that be, you'd be looking to a motion to approve that
Approve these final documents unless you
for
would
the
like to
loan,
make any
for
changes.
the loan program? What's it
For
called?
the local program support grant. It's a mouthful.
I'd make the motion to approve the documentation for the local program support grants.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is public hearings, and we have none, so we're down to resolutions. A resolution 2013-03, a resolution of the Urban Renewal Agency of Lincoln City approving an award of bid from Ace Consulting, Inc. for design and engineering services related to the D-Lake utility undergrounding.
Mr. Chairman, I would like you to consider a revised resolution with a modification to item number 6 on page 2 to read, this resolution is effective in 10 days after the date of adoption to provide for review of the process for compliance with Oregon statutes. We talked about that earlier, that I'd like to have a checkup on, make sure that our process complies with current statute.
And this way, you're not delegating to me or to anybody to change your decision. It'll be effective in 10 days. If I find something needed to be changed or fixed, I'll bring that back to your attention, and you can have a meeting and reconsider and correct whatever needs to be corrected.
Okay. Is there a motion to accept the resolution with the changes that have been proposed by the city manager?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Is this one that needs a roll call? Yes. Okay, roll call, please.
Sprague,
Yes.
Norikis,
No.
Quant,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
and Eggleton.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Are there any agency member comments? We're at that stage.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I wonder if we could have Kurt or Allison come back, and maybe I'd like to talk a little about Mr. Dubie's comments on the sewer expansion. I'm in Cutler City. I guess I don't have it in front of me, but I thought that was one of the projects that we had approved or was moving it ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. The plans are completed. We're just going over the final, make sure that there aren't any additional changes. And so we're preparing. I think we have budgeted enough to actually construct it this year as well. I think, as I remember, we budgeted for that, although it wouldn't be constructed totally in this year, so that isn't really an issue.
In this fiscal year.
In this fiscal year, yeah. Excuse me. So, you'll be seeing that very soon.
Okay. So, Mr. Chairman, I always love it when we can deliver, quick service to someone in the Cutler City area, and I'm sure Mr. Dubie will spread the word that his words made all the difference in this. And again, while you're there, I don't recall a highway expansion project that was at Visioning Saving, because it never came up as one of our projects to decide on when we were doing this last year.
Right. You haven't seen anything come forward to you to move anything forward, a design or a concept. There are concepts that are out there that are in the Cutler City Plan. Most of them, in my feeling, had always been that they would make a significant impact on the businesses that were there, so that we would be prepared to move something forward. However, most of our projects that happen on the highway are a joint ODOT funding, usually goes through the STIP plan or something. So we don't fund a lot of stuff other than sidewalks. The sidewalks, like I said, are going to make a major impact on especially the two businesses that are there. But they always do, because they're parking now in the public right-of-way, and when we need more room for even sidewalks, virtually Roby's would have no parking in front of their business. So until they're prepared to make that change, I'm really not prepared to propose putting sidewalks there, because they wouldn't be for it. And the same goes with Lumberman. So that's really the holdup there. If there were businesses that wanted to do it, for example, Free Gallery had put in the sidewalks in front of their business, but they had geared up for that and probably were required to do it as part of the construction of that building. So,
great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other comments, agency members?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I want to take it very briefly. Mr. Warner brought up an interesting point that has plagued me and others around the community regarding urban renewal. And I agree, don't get me wrong, I agree with putting things underground, because I think for a lot of different reasons. I think it should have been put underground a long time ago. But anyway, I do share the pain of driving through Ocean Lake and seeing this beautiful streetscape, and unfortunately some of the most hideous buildings I've ever seen in my life anywhere. And I know we've been working on facade improvement loans, trying to talk people into improving. A couple of them have, but it's grim, and it bothers me that we are spending, and I hear what Mr. Warner is saying, we're spending millions and millions of dollars, and unfortunately, it's sort of like putting a diamond necklace on a pig, So I do understand and I do agree with him. I don't know what the solution is, but it is bothersome.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan, I think you're onto something there, and perhaps the local loan program or grant program that we just put forth, maybe someone will come forth with some ideas for businesses in Lincoln City of how they might economically change the look or change their inventory, or looking at a better selection or different selection. So, we may be surprised. I'm hoping we'll be surprised. Thank you.
I would add one comment to that, and that is that many of the business buildings that we have in this community are owned by absentee owners who don't have an incentive to spend the money to upgrade and whatever. I don't know what the percentage is, but I know it's high. So it's a kind of a catch-22. It's really, really tough on both sides of that. If there's nothing else, then we are adjourned.